Hello, my name is Catherine, and I am the hospice chaplain here in Tacoma, Washington. Sometimes in my work I meet absolutely remarkable people, and today I want to introduce you to one of them. In my work, I work with people who are dying, and in our society in America, we do our very best to do anything but deal with death. We talk around it, we avoid it. Even when someone in our family is dying, it's even hard for us to say the word death. Today I want you to meet a friend of mine named Emmy. And Emmy is a woman who is a phenomenally wise woman who is living until the very end of her life. She's been on hospice for some months now, and she's going to tell you a few stories about her life that I hope will help you perhaps deal with death and with those around you who will die. I believe that perhaps the hardest thing we do in life is to grieve. And we can grieve lots of things, the loss of a job, but one of the great things in our life is to grieve death, the death of those that we love, and our own deaths. I'm going to ask Emmy a few questions today, and my hope is that she will give you some tips from her own incredible wisdom and her spirit of how she is planning to live until the very end, until she does die. The gift of hospice, the gift of death. So I'd like you to meet Emmy. Emmy, I wonder if you could tell the people about the condition that you have and how long you've been on hospice. Just a short explanation.
Okay. I have had lymphocytic leukemia. I was diagnosed 7 years ago, and in May was told by my oncologist that there was no more that could be done for me because I had a very severe reaction to chemotherapy, intravenous chemotherapy. I had been on oral chemotherapy for several years before, and he could not give me any more chemotherapy. So he rather dismissed me from from the office, and then I even then was having a pain in my lower back, and finally it became so severe that my daughter-in-law came one day and saw that I was really incapacitated and said, "I'm going to take you to the doctor." And I went to my internist, and he said right away, "Well, you better have a bone scan." And the gist of it was that a week later I just went back for the verdict, and he said, "Well, they found a mass in your pelvic area," and that was pressing and on the nerves and hurting my leg. And so he said, "You have two choices, either radiation every single day or medication." And my older daughter was with me at the time, and he said, I'll let you talk this over for a minute and give you a few minutes alone." And he gave each of us a Kleenex and took one himself and walked out of the room. And we decided that the radiation would be pretty intolerable because it wouldn't heal it. It would just reduce the pain, but to have to go down to the radiologist every single day just seemed very uncomfortable to me. So we opted to go with medicine. And he came back, and we told him what it was, and he gave us each a hug and went back, said, "I'll be back in just a minute, I want to make a call." And he came back and said, "You're in hospice now." And at the time, I had some toenail fungus. And I said, "I do have this fungus on my toes." And he said, "Well, the treatment is 6 months." I said, "Oh." And he said, "Let's forget it." And I know he didn't. I figured, well, he didn't expect me
To live 6
to
months.
live, I guess, actually 6 weeks. But he didn't really expect me to live even 6 weeks.
Now, how long ago was that?
Time. That was in June.
In June.
I entered June 12th. And, of course, I was aware enough that hospice patients were normally considered terminal patients, and that you usually had about 6 months to live. So I really did not expect to be here this Christmas. So you can understand what a gift this has been to me, to be able to be here at Christmas which is one of my favorite times. Maybe you didn't notice, but yeah.
One of the things that I've loved about you, Emmy, is your spirit. And sometimes people, as they're waiting to die, get so frustrated because they don't know when it's going to happen. Could you give people some tips on how you have managed to get up and look forward to the day rather than dreading the day, not knowing how long you'll live?
Well, I have a tremendous faith in God, and I think that makes a difference. But I also have wonderful, wonderful friends and family, which makes all the difference in the world. And I just, death is, to me, is part of living. And I want my children to be comfortable with it and to know that I feel that I have had a wonderful life. I'm 76 years old. I've had a very happy marriage for 55 years. And I guess that I just look at each day as a gift, which we really all should do. But you don't do that when you're so busy in the hubbub of everything. And I just honestly have enjoyed every single day and have been with my children on a one-to-one basis more than I ever would have been had I not been ill, and really gotten to know them more intimately as friends, not just children. And that's been a real great thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And my friends, as I say, it's just knowing that they're all there for me. And
Now you go out to
So-
lunch. I
oh,
think.
absolutely. I go out to lunch, and I've even had a few dates with my next door neighbor, and he's
And-
taken me out to dinner, and I've been over to his house for dinner, and he's just a wonderful neighbor, has been ever since my husband died. He's taken the garbage out for me every week, and just been wonderful. And so I figure, at 76, if you can still have a man attend to you once in a while, that's kind of nice.
It sure is.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Was wondering if you would tell a few of the stories you've told me, Emmy.
Well, I think one of the funnier ones to me is because my older daughter and I in particular have kind of an odd feeling about, we giggle a lot about my dying and what's going to happen and what I will or will not do. But I wanted to go out to Nordstrom's half year sale, and we went out, and she
Now this is in July.
yes,
And you had-
it was July, and I was getting better, a little bit better, but still not very strong.
Right.
And so she got we took the wheelchair, and we went, and I needed some cosmetics, and so I went to the cosmetic counter, and the young girl was very helpful, and then she said, well, now we have these wonderful compacts that are of powder that are only $50, and I said, oh, and she said, oh, but she said the refill is only $20 and it'll last, a year or so. And I said, well, I'm not going to be here that long. And she said, oh, don't be silly. I was really upset. And I said, no, I really won't. I said, I'm in hospice now. And she just her mouth went open. But she said, too, I just wish my grandmother had been able to talk to me about her death. And she wasn't able to.
Mm-hmm.
That she just didn't feel free about talking about it. But I said, well, my daughter and I, as you see, have really discussed it, and we giggle a lot about things, and have enjoyed. I don't mean enjoy death particularly, but we're not afraid of it, and they know I'm not afraid to die, and that I have a good feeling. And so, but anyway, I had her in tears before we left. I didn't mean to do that, but she threw her arms around me and kissed me and said, good luck,
What
So-
a wonderful story.
Yeah.
What a wonderful story.
Yeah.
Any more stories that you've told that you'd like to tell?
Well, I think one of the things that have amazed the doctors and even the people in hospice that when I guess it was in August maybe that my sister and brother-in-law called from Edmonds and said they'd like to go out to Hood Canal, and they love to swim at Toronto State Park. The water's very warm there, and they said, would you like to go for the drive? And I said, yes, I really would, you know. So we went out there, and I took my bathing suit and I went in swimming. I didn't have the strength to swim very much at that time, but they stood right by me because my balance was so a little off.
Oops.
And,
You just lost a little bear.
yeah, and it was warm, and it just felt so good, and I felt so smug to think, here I am, I can, even though I'm dying, I can swim still.
Many
you know.
people in their peak of health wouldn't swim in Hood Canal
No.
anyway. That's a wonderful
so it was
story.
lovely. And then in, I guess it was August or September, a dear friend of mine who was a retired nurse decided we wanted to go to the ocean. And I talked to the hospice people about it, and they were so wonderful about arranging with the Hoquiam hospice, so that if I had any trouble while I was at Ocean Shores, that I could call them. And so we went down and stayed for 2 nights and 2 days, and just, you know, I didn't walk the beach as much as I would have liked to, but she drove me on the beach, and it was just a delightful time. And that made me, you know, to be able to do what you can do every single day really makes a difference, and to live your fullest. And
Abundantly.
yes,
Live life
absolutely.
abundantly. Tell the story about going to the movie with your daughter.
The whole thing.
Sure, I think the whole thing's great.
Well, my daughter and I went to see, now I never can remember the name of it, Meryl Streep and, oh dear, what was the name? Well, it was about a mother died of cancer, actually, and their daughter comes home, but the daughter had not been on especially good terms with the mother, and the mother was kind of a person that was in all kinds of activities and was kind of a Martha Stewart type, knew how to do everything in the crafts and all, and just all, you know, had always attended to everything. And it's a lovely story, and if you haven't seen it, you should, and I'm sorry I can't remember the name, but we were sitting there and we were crying and holding hands once in a while, and got, you know, but enjoying it. Though acting is wonderful. But we got toward the end of the show, and Barbara said, my bladder is just killing me. And my urologist would not want me to sit here like this. I know, because she's had problems. And I said, you know, I have to go awfully badly too. And so we waited about 2 minutes more, and she said, I can't wait, Mother. And I said, well, I'll go with you. And we ran out hoping that we would get back in time. And as we left the restroom, we're leaving the restroom, the people from the show were coming.
One true thing.
Yes.
One true thing. That's
One true thing, that's right. Yes, thank you.
So
And-
you're leaving the restroom, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're leaving the restroom, and everybody else is coming out of the theater, so we never did know how it ended. And then afterwards, we asked 3 different people at different times, and they all 3 had a different ending. And so we don't really know, but it was one in which it didn't really make too much difference.
Yeah.
The mother dies, and you don't know whether the daughter helped her with pills or whether somebody else, the father did, or whether because she didn't want to live like she was living. But so it was interesting, though. I've never in my life paid to see a show and not seen the end.
Not seen the end. Not seen the end.
But that's what happens sometimes.
Oh, that's very, I love that story. Last time I was here, we talked for a couple hours about your service when you die, about
Yes.
your memorial
Uh-huh.
service.
Mhm.
I have to say, in my ministerial life, I have never had that opportunity. Most people will completely avoid talking about their service and their death and planning it. Talk a
Uh-huh.
little bit about that experience, how that was for you.
Well, I really feel that it's very important to have, and Catherine asked me what type of feeling did I want the people to go away with, and I said, well, I really want people to be happy, because, and just think of the good things of my life, and which is all my life I've just had such nice friends, and I have lived in Tacoma all my life, which is rather unusual, so I do have a lot of friends that are lifelong. One of which lived across the street from me and is a year older, so knew me from the time I was just a baby, you know, and we've been very dear friends all along, and I see her at least once a month now, and she's been really good about taking me out to lunch or, you know, doing things. And in the Episcopal Church, those of you who are used to it, it's rather a formal service sometimes, the burial of the dead, and often there's not much eulogy about the person, and I don't want somebody standing up and saying how wonderful I was, but I
plan to do that.
I want it to be about me. I want there to be something about me, and I want it to be happy and have people go away with a good feeling. And I have planned the music. I know the hymns that I would like to have played, and I'm not sure whether I want singing or not yet. I haven't decided on that for sure. Mm-hmm. And I don't find it difficult at all. Maybe I am different, but the day that Barbara and I learned that I was terminal, we came home and called my other two children. I think we called Polly too, my son's widow, and they all came over and we had a pizza party. Because what else do you do? I mean, we were celebrating the beginning of something new.
And you called it a new inning.
Yes.
Another inning.
And so I think Catherine knows what I would like, and she has very graciously accepted doing the service, and I'm so pleased because I feel she knows me pretty well. And so that's...
Talk for a second, or talk for a while, Emmy, about the conversations with your kids and grandkids about death, about, just the frank conversations. I think most of us are afraid to have those conversations, or that it'd be too sad, or we're afraid of our tears. What has it been like for you?
Well, fortunately, I think that talking about my death was a little harder on my younger daughter, and it took her a while to really get comfortable with it, but she is very much so now and has been wonderful. And my son has been just as dear as can be, and really, we can talk back and forth about it quite easily. With my grandsons, I have 5 grandsons, all of whom, the youngest of whom is 18 and a freshman at the UW, and they have accepted it and have been wonderful. And my older daughter has 2 stepsons, and they're included as my grandchildren because they've just been wonderful. And the youngest one lives in Nevada and has called me every single week. And he is married, and he calls just to see how Grandma is. And so I tell him the only thing that's holding me back from doing anything is that I can't drive because of the medication I'm on, and he's always calling me a hot wheeler or something. He likes to tease me about my lead foot. And, so he can sympathize with me on that. But Erin and my granddaughter, and Matthew, the youngest, the one at the U, have, they are fine Christians themselves, and I think they really are quite at home with the idea, and we can discuss it. And Erin was here the other day, and she saw a bear that she hadn't noticed before, and she said, "Oh, that one's darling." And I said, "Well, put your name on it, And we can do that without her feeling, "Oh no, Grandma, don't talk like that,"
Right.
And because I know and they know, and I've had a delightful time. This maybe isn't what you want to hear right now, but I was a bear collector as well as a doll collector, and this Christmas I have found dolls or teddy bears from my collection and gave them to my dear friend's grandchildren. All her granddaughters are getting a bear, and they're not wrapped as a Christmas present, but I wrote them each a note and gave them to them. And I'm doing the same for another friend's 2 older daughters who they're in their 50s and 40s, but they just kind of wanted something, and I liked the idea that they wanted something of mine, and so
And that you chose it rather than
yeah,
afterwards them.
uh-huh. So I really enjoyed doing that, and then I gave a lot of teddy bears to our, the church was getting little Christmas packages together for needy children, and it's fun to be able to share what I have loved with other people, and
Mm-hmm.
so no, I really, we talk about my death, and I think that's maybe important for people to know, that you have to let them know that you feel all right with it, and
That's
and that it isn't something that you're dreading or
Fearful
that
of.
you're fearful of at all, and so they will know. And I know someone told me, maybe it was you, but that I was teaching my children and my grandchildren how to die, and I really think they all have learned that, you know, every day is more important than you think, because you never know where you're going to be at that stage.
Mm-hmm.
And now, you know, each day is a gift from God to me, really.
And you live each day like that.
Yes, I try to now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to cry.
That's good. Well, you have something in your lap you're holding to read about tears.
Oh, yes,
Would
I
you-
do.
Would you read a part of that? Or?
I'll have to wipe my eyes first.
Okay, that's fine. Kleenex are always around.
Yeah, I have the Kleenex always on hand.
Now you have to hold it down so we can see your pretty face. Thank you.
Someone sent this to me after my husband died, and I thought it was so lovely. You know, it's just, tears are the proof of life, and I wish I could remember who sent it, because it's really quite lovely. And there's no, it's anonymous apparently, whoever wrote it, but at the end it says, they're asking how long will the grief and pain of grief last, and the answer is all the rest of your life. But the thing to remember is that not only the pain will last, but the blessed memories as well. Tears are the proof of life. The more love, the more tears. If this be true, then how could we ever ask that pain cease altogether? For then the memory of love would go with it. The pain of grief is the price we pay for love. I think that's really quite a lovely thought. And
Read the
Right.
last line one more time, Emmy.
the pain of grief is the price we pay for love. And you know, love isn't easy always.
No, love is
Yeah, it can be hard.
love can be very difficult.
Yes.
Two art forms I'm thinking of. One, I'm thinking of the movie Shadowlands.
Mhm.
Have you seen that?
Yes, I have.
And
Yes.
that's a quote almost directly that
From that.
the Mrs. Lewis says to C.S.
Yes,
Lewis.
yes.
I've forgotten her name.
Yeah.
And then I think about the great book that just came out a year ago called Tuesdays with Morrie.
You were telling me about it, but I haven't
Yeah.
read it, but I think I'll have to get that because it sounds wonderful.
Well, you are a living, you are a female version of Morrie, but it was filled with so much hope and so much love and so much life that
Yeah.
I hope the people that see this video, maybe they're in hospice or maybe in a church
Yeah.
group, or I don't know who will get to see this video,
Yeah.
but I hope you have given me so much encouragement about dying, that dying can
Yeah, I
be
appreciate that.
a wonderful
Yeah.
process,
Mhm.
opportunity to learn more about life.
Uh-huh.
And I know that your kids and your grandkids will never be the same because of how you
Yeah.
looked at dying with such hope and
Well, that's wonderful. I hope that that's true, because I hope for everybody not to be afraid and to reach out to your friends. I think sometimes we say, oh, I can't bother them, but you know, I think everyone wants to be bothered at a time like they want to do something, and if it's just say, oh, could you bring me, I have one dear friend, actually my cousin's wife, who for all these months has brought me whatever kind of pudding I wanted, because for a while I couldn't eat very well, and she said, well, you've got to have the nutrition, and so she'd bring me rice pudding or tapioca or just custard, which were all very nutritious, you know, and I'd get to choose what I wanted. But people want to do things,
Yeah.
I think, and it makes them feel more that they are helping and they're doing something for you. And
What a good idea.
I think it's wonderful. Yeah.
To give them, I think
That's
people
it.
want to help, but they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So for you to give them jobs
Yes. Uh-huh.
is a gift to them.
Well, I hope, I mean, because I know if I were in their place, I'd really want to do something, and there's so little people feel they can do. I mean, as far as the physical side of it. But now in my instance, I can't drive because of the medication I'm on, so it means someone has to get groceries, and my daughters don't live in Tacoma, but my son does. But my cousin and his wife have been wonderful about going to the grocery store, and other people have offered, and so it's just there is something always for people to do.
Yes.
And they want to be there.
And I love the idea of you reaching out, because we are funny. We don't know how to reach out when someone's
Yeah.
dying, so
Uh-huh.
we bring food, which is nice,
Yeah.
but not always all that helpful.
No.
Because the
Uh-huh.
food people bring, and they don't know,
Yes.
but if you call them, then it makes it so much
Yeah.
easier.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
You are
And
remarkable.
but I've been able to go to my dog club, and I was to go to my garden club Monday, but it was canceled because of the snow. But I've tried to keep up with as much as I can, in all my activities, and hospice has encouraged me to keep going just as long as I feel like I can, and if I get tired, and I'll come home and I can go to sleep because I have no one. I'm fortunate in that respect. I don't have anybody I have to see to or take care of, at home, and so I can just lie down and sleep for a while and eat later.
What would you say to people is the secret of your wonderful attitude?
Well, I think first of all, I was born into a very happy family, and my father and mother gave me a lot of it. My father was a very, very happy-go-lucky person, and my mother really was too. I mean, they put up with a lot, I know, but I never felt at home that there was anything I could do that was really terrible. They never made me feel that, and I wasn't the best of students, and I'm sure that I caused them to worry sometimes, but I never went through a rebellious stage or never felt that way about my parents. I could always talk to them about things, and I think that I'm just lucky to have inherited a very optimistic nature, and just.
But you were loved. You were unconditionally loved.
I was, yes, and I had a wonderful, loving husband who thought I was wonderful, which everybody needs, and so. And my children have been great too, and we really have had a wonderful time. And I know that sounds crazy, but I just keep telling them. I said, "This is such fun dying," and we've had such fun doing it, and it's been great, and all my friends, and there's a lot of love around.
There is a lot of love. Talk a little bit, if you could, about during this time when you have been dying, how you have gone back and done some grieving over the son that you lost when he was a grown adult, and your own husband that you lost.
Well, it's true. I think when I was talking to Catherine the other day about my service, I got rather emotional, and I really, I do cry over my son, losing my son. He was, I'm going to start again.
That's just fine.
He was 46 years old, and was a runner, and nobody that you'd ever expect to have die so young. And he just had a very sudden, massive heart attack. And his little 12-year-old girl at the time was there alone with him. And his niece had been visiting and had flu, and he thought he had flu. And so they didn't nobody did anything because he didn't realize what was going on until too late. And he finally said, I think you better call Mom. But anyway, when the medics came, I think he was gone already. And my husband at the time was suffering from short-term memory loss and some severe damage due to being a diabetic for years. And he just didn't seem to be able to handle it all. So I really didn't cry a lot at that time, or didn't really grieve as much as I would have liked to, because I felt I had to be strong for my husband. So that's kind of come back now, and I get very weepy when I talk about him, because he was too young to leave so early.
And it was sudden. You didn't
have
have the time.
Yeah, we didn't have the time to say goodbye, and I think that's bothered me a lot. But his wonderful wife is still my daughter, and she's been great. And fortunately, she has remarried, and we're so happy because she was too young to be alone. And her children are just great children, and so we're all going to be together at Christmas time.
With her new husband.
With her
here.
new husband. Mm-hmm. And his two girls too will be here, and so it's just fine. And my husband died 2 years later, and it was really a blessing because of his short-term memory. He couldn't have been left alone. If I had gone first, he would have had to been put into a nursing home, and the children and I both had said, "Oh, what will we do?" You know, and I know they had worried. They hadn't talked to me about it so much, but they had worried about what will we do if Mom should go and Dad's here, because it really wasn't feasible for them to live with any of them because they all worked, and he would still be alone. Mm-hmm. But he was at the point where he didn't remember to turn off burners and you know, where he could have really hurt himself, and his eyes were going bad, although he had satisfactory cataract surgery. But still, it was so many years of being a diabetic, they weren't as good, and he was on insulin. So eventually, he would have needed somebody to give him his shots, and it really was just a blessing. And we had been up to Canada, to Vancouver, around the 29th of May, and my husband's birthday was the 30th, and so we were with my sister and brother-in-law, and the children had given us both, Barbara's children had given them the trip on the train, mm-hmm. And my children had given us the trip on the train. They'd gotten together and decided that would be fun. So we decided we'd stay all night, and so we took the train and went up to Vancouver, and we were within walking distance of where a showboat was being held, and had tickets for that. And we went to the theater, and my husband loved music and was quite a musician himself. He had a beautiful singing voice, and he just kept saying, "Oh," he said, "this is the best birthday I've ever had." And he came home, and he just kept telling everybody about what a wonderful birthday he'd had. And he never wanted anything. You know, he's one of these people who'd say, "What do you want for your birthday, Dad?" Or, you know, old pair of socks, you know. And he wasn't materialistic at all, but he had so enjoyed the production of Showboat. And so it was the 14th of June, and the 14th, yeah. And he came in one night, and he said he'd had a real happy day because he'd watched a game. I can't remember now if it was the Sonics game, but they had won anyway, and he was happy about that. And then by the time he got into the bedroom, he said, "Oh, I'm so tired." And he sat on the edge of the bed, and he put his head on the pillow. And I thought, well, you're being a little over dramatic. And he had just gone. And it was just really beautiful, because he'd been so happy that last 2 weeks of his life, everything that just seemed to be, really good for him. And can I tell you a funny thing that happened?
Please.
I don't know if you've heard this before, but we did call the medics, although my husband and I both have a living will, but I didn't know what else to do, at the time. And so they came and they wanted to put him down in the bedroom to do CPR on him, but there wasn't room. And so they picked him up, and as they came out in the hall, they did not realize he was an amputee, and his leg fell off. I thought the medic was going to have a stroke. And my husband would just have loved that. I mean, I can't help but feel that he knew what was going on, because he could make fun of that himself like that, and he just thought it was so funny. So that was mentioned in his memorial service, because it was so typical of what could happen, and
That's so wonderful.
But I was really very happy. Sad that he's gone, but very happy that he went before I did, because he just wouldn't have been able to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
God knows what he's doing.
God, she does, doesn't she?
Yes.
God knows what she's doing.
Yes.
Is there any other pearls? I know you may not say them as pearls, but they are pearls, Emmy. Any other pearls on living until you die, or thoughts you'd like to share with folks?
Well, I think, they always say, take time to smell the roses, and I think that's important. And take time to enjoy your family, and just not worry about every little nitpicking thing, but just enjoy having them. And some people that are younger maybe think, well, I'll never be on a friend-to-friend basis with my children, but you do get to that point. And it's wonderful, because you're just not mother and child, but you're that as well as being a really true friend. And I think we all need to just take time and feel that this day has been given to us, and do the best that you can, and don't sweat the small things, really. Just know what's important, and don't make a big deal out of something that isn't really important in the scheme of things. So I always remember, someone told me when I was a young housewife, that nobody's going to remember how clean your house was, but your children are going to remember the love that you had and the time you took to play with them. And that was hard for me, because I thought I had to wash windows all the time, and you have to learn what's important. Yeah. And friends, I think, are very important.
Yeah. And you have good friends.
Yeah.
Your days are full of good friends.
Yes, they are. I'm very fortunate. I really am.
Well, you've been a good friend to them.
Well, I hope so. I don't know. But I do have some wonderful friends. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about the women that I have studied in history, that I call women of strength and courage.
Yes.
And you are one of them, Emmy.
Oh.
You have taught me as much as Eleanor Roosevelt or Harriet Tubman about how to live, because I think one of the hardest things in life is dying. And how do you die gracefully and lovingly? And you have taught me so much. I think you probably, through this video, maybe will teach more people how to die well.
Well, I'm very fortunate that with this type of illness, they've conquered the pain. I'm not in pain, and I know that's different, but I think now almost anything can be taken care of. And the hospice people are wonderful about seeing that. I mean, and my doctor said there's absolutely no reason in the world why you should have any pain at all. Yeah. And because I think that's what most people are afraid of, and it isn't the dying process itself so much, but just would like to go peacefully into this good night, I guess. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that has absolutely no fear for me. I know there's somebody waiting for me.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you, Catherine. I certainly feel like like a celebrity. I don't I don't know that I deserve all that praise, but
I think you do.
oh,
Thank you for
Ed.
sharing your wisdom with us.
Well, and I'm so happy to have met you and had gotten to know you as a friend, because it's just been a real treat for me.
Well, I think we'll sign off for now.
All right.
Okay.
Starts to talk and
That was
can't get them
ex-
stopped.
That
Was that all right?
wonderful. Oh, I thought,
What have you noticed in the difference of kids as they used to be and kids now, as far as being a teacher?
Oh, well, kids, I don't think I could teach now. Really, I mean, I don't know, maybe it isn't so much that, but when I was in school, we wouldn't have dared say, talk back to a teacher.
yeah.
While I was teaching, I didn't have too much trouble with that. There were, one or two times, but I had a wonderful principal toward my later years, and he liked me because I would do pretty much what he wanted. I mean, if there was a new child coming in and he'd say, well, would you mind having somebody come in? I'd say, no, or the other teachers might say, well, I've got this many, or, and that's just my personality. It isn't anything against the other teachers, but I mean, I'm kind of willing to go along with anything. And then when he asked me to teach two classes, like when I retired, I was teaching 5th and 6th grade. And, but he saw to it that I had no discipline problems. Well, that makes all the difference in the world if you don't have to take half the time in your class to work with discipline problems. And of course I was at Downing then, and there weren't too many.
Did you have motivational problems? Did students not want to,
Well, that was more of a problem when I was at Stanley. And I was there during the civil rights movement. And that's, are you familiar with Stanley?
Mm-hmm.
And it was difficult there because the parents at that time didn't feel welcome at the school. And, a lot of them had had bad experiences in schools. And so they didn't come. I mean, you'd have conferences and you'd set it up for a certain time, and they didn't see the importance of being there at that time. And it was difficult. And then it was hard knowing that even though I felt I was fairly well liked by the black students, I taught 3rd grade, that when it came right down to the civil rights part, that if anything happened there, which they were expecting kind of the place to blow up, in their faces, that I would just be another honky to them, and whether, because I was white, and that it wouldn't make any difference to them how nice I had been or what, or how they had liked me. But up to that moment, because there was so much friction going on in the homes, and we had Black Panthers coming to PTA meetings, and they'd come in and keep their hats on and then and sit in the front row. They had no children there, but they just came
to intimidate?
To intimidate, and when we said the Pledge of Allegiance, of course, they wouldn't stand or do anything, and we just were told, just ignore them. But there was a time when we had to have somebody escort us to our cars, too, because they were afraid, of... But I just... one of the nicest compliments I think I have ever had, though, was a little black girl that I had my first year in teaching there, the 3rd grade, and I had a class that, when I went in there, class of 35 students, of 3rd graders, none of whom could read above 1st grade level. And, but anyway, among them was this beautiful little girl whose name was Vivica. And she was so pretty and so sharp, and I just wanted so much for her. And so she used to call me periodically, through the years, and finally she was at Jason Lee, and she called me and said, well, and I said, Vivica, how are you getting along? And I think it was still junior high then, and she said, well, Ms. Jones, them white teachers. And apparently she didn't think of me as being a white teacher, which was a real compliment, I think,
Yes.
because she figured that I was just her teacher, that. But I think it would be awfully hard to have to do so much disciplining and
It is, isn't it?
really,
It
yeah.
is. That takes up a good 60% of the time.
Yeah.
60%.
At
Yeah,
least.
it's really. Now my daughter is teaching third grade this year at Point Defiance, and she is what they call looping. Are you familiar with that? Well, she had this whole class in the second grade last year, and they were just trying this out, and they just, instead of having them all go to different third grade, that she took the class en masse.
She moved up with them.
Yes, to another room and everything. And she said it's kind of funny now because they're all saying, well, you'll follow us to college, won't you?
Now, that would be good if you had a great teacher. If you had a teacher that wasn't so good, that would be...
No, that's true. Yeah.
My children
Yeah.
each had 2 teachers
Oh.
that were the same for the
Yeah.
next year, and they loved them. Of
Yeah.
course, they were fabulous teachers, and
Yeah.
my kids are pretty good students, but
Yeah.
I think it would be, Stephanie, I think it would be really difficult to teach today.
Yeah, I think, especially in the upper grades. Now, Point Defiance seems to be a pretty middle class, I think, group, and there are not too many. There are a lot of Russians there, and the Russians are just fabulously bright.
Are they?
And Nancy
Isn't that
said,
great?
I just can't understand it. These kids, come over not speaking a word of English, and they're just rattling off, English, and they're in the gifted programs, and it's really remarkable how well
They're
they
much
can
more
do.
driven than we are.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell the story of the Vivica again. Would you tell that story again?
Oh, but just that she was such a pretty little girl, and she called me periodically to say how she was doing, and the last time I heard from her actually was in junior high, when she was in junior high. And I said, well, how are things going, and are you liking junior high? And she said, oh, Ms. Jones, them white teachers. And so she was, but I've wondered about her,
But
wondered if she-
and you felt
well, I felt honored.
You
Yes,
felt
I really
honored
did. Yes, I
that
did.
she considered you not one
Yeah.
of those white teachers.
Yeah. I did, because I didn't see those children as black or white, really. I mean, if they'd come in and say, how many blacks do you have, which we did at one time, you don't have to segregate, know how many. And I wouldn't know, because they were all just darling little kids to me. And so they finally took some of that 35 out of my room, because one of my friends that I made friends later was a second grade teacher, and she said, we had stacked your room knowing that it was going to be a new teacher. We didn't know who, but knowing it was going to be a new teacher, that we just figured, oh, we'll give all the problems and all the kids that we didn't want in the...
To you.
Yeah.
Because
So
you
they
didn't
put 'em all
have
in
you
there.
didn't have them as problems, same as problems.
No, well, it wasn't that, but they just didn't know me. They didn't know who was going to have it, you see, have that third grade, and because I was new to that building, and we were out in the in a portable, and I had no intercom system. We had a new principal that year too, and people would come in off the playground, come right in our room, and there was no way of calling and saying, I think I need somebody down there,
Right. Help.
Yeah, and so it was a little, it could be a little, I mean, the men that came in, it wasn't black or anything, they just men off the street, had just kind of follow us through, and you tried. And I had lots of funny, one little boy had a real strong accent. He must have been from the South, and he was late one day, and when he got there, I said, well, Charles, you're awfully late, and he was kind of crying and kind of fussing around, and I couldn't understand what he said, but I said, well, you have to go and report into the office, and which he went up there, And when he left, I said, now children, we've got to be very special to Charles because his mother died this morning. Because that's what I got out of the conversation. And so when after school was over, well, anyway, they all, oh, you know, that's fine. They'd be nice to him. And when we got through with school, his sister came to pick him up, and I said, I'm so sorry to hear about your mother. She said, what about my mother? And I said, well, Charles said she died. No, his clothes were in the dryer. And I mean, I can't got around to me.
Oh, that is hysterical.
Yes, I mean, I felt like such a fool.
His clothes are in the dryer.
Yeah.
Not his mother's died.
No.
I can see how you can confuse those two.
And he was so upset. I guess he thought I was going to be mad. Hi, Tom. Oh, I didn't realize you were here too. How are you?
I'm fine.
You can come in.
I'm gonna look at your cards.
I guess are we through?
Well, I
with
think
that?
we're through with that. I think
Yeah.
we're going to move to
Oh, we're
do
going
some
to
pictures.
Okay, all right.
And
I'm gonna
takes-
look at your cards, so that's okay.
All right, okay.
I just gotta switch tapes, so you can go ahead and say hi to people if you want to do that.
Oh,
Okay,
all
so
right.
now we're on a new tape?
No, I gotta switch tapes.
Okay.
And then we'll
Okay.
do a
Okay,
walk
great,
around.
got it.
Okay,
So you can say hi
That's
to
a
your
good-
daughter and...
yeah, all right.
Let me get a picture of you with your daughter and stuff too.
Do you want to be on the video?
No?
Okay.
Those diabetics that is fine one day and 2 minutes later he's out cold on the floor, you know, or
Yeah.
really sick. Because that's what happened with him. It just was so sudden. And,
Are we taping?
oh,
Oh.
and, yes.
I was just going to ask you to talk a little bit about hospice and pain as you know it, and what you know about your experience and other people's experiences.
Yes. Well, the hospice people have insisted that I not have any pain at all. And the only problems that they haven't been able to fulfill for me is that I had shingles before all this, and I still am having some discomfort from shingles.
Mhm.
But that's just me. But the nurse today was saying, well, take your, there's medication that I have that I was supposed to take, but I kept thinking it for the pain in my back, you know, so I haven't been taking it, and because I didn't need it. And so they suggested that I take some of that now and see if that would help when I have these.
Now, if
It's
any
discomfort.
doctor were ever to see this, and I would love for every doctor in America to have to see this video, what would you say to doctors about hospice care?
I think they would, I'd like them to know that it is absolutely wonderful, and I have no qualms whatsoever. They have been so supportive of letting me do as much as I feel I can do. And my own doctor, Dr. Mahali, was wonderful. He said, you can eat what you want, don't eat if you don't want. He said, you know, just do what you want to do. And I did have a problem one night. I was quite sick to my stomach early on in June, I think it was, or July maybe. But and the nurse the next day called Dr. Mahali and said, well, she was quite ill, and he said, had she eaten anything unusual? And the nurse turned and I said, well, I had a hot fudge sundae. And he started to laugh and said, well, just tell her to cut back a little bit on the chocolate next time. And, you know, so it wasn't any big thing, but he wants me to do what I wanted to do. And hospice has been so supportive. And when I called to see would it be possible if I go to the ocean and, you know, or go up to my sister's in Edmonds and stay with her, or my daughters, you know. And they have just said, absolutely, you do what you can, you know, and whatever you feel like. They've just really been with me every single step of the way.
Sometimes
It's-
doctors, I think, are reticent to put you on hospice because they think they can still do more. And
Yes.
And in my opinion, and I'm a hospice worker, but I think they compromise the end of life so greatly
Mhm.
when they do that.
Mhm.
And if people could ask for hospice more and be asked for the doctor to put me on hospice, or doctors would be more well educated about how much hospice can change the quality at the end of your life.
Yeah, well, I certainly think they know, but my doctor apparently does know, because
Yes,
he said
he does know.
Hospice, either one of them are wonderful. I guess I don't know how many there are in Tacoma, but he said, and he just went in, because he knows me well too, and he knows what he can say to me, and that he can be frank, but he came back from his office and just said, "You're in hospice now." I didn't have, he didn't say, "May I do this?" or
Right,
anything,
he
but
just
it
did
was
it.
just, he did it. And
A wise
so
doctor.
everything was just taken, and by the next day I had my hospital bed and my wheelchair and the commode, and just everything were here. It was just remarkable, just great.
Great. Great.
And they really, and I think especially working with the doctor, and I know
Yes.
the nurses here do,
Yes.
and
Some doctors work well with us, and
Yeah.
some doctors
yeah,
can be a real pain
Mhm.
to work with.
Mhm.
But when we work as a team, everyone, especially the patients, win.
yes,
And
yeah,
that's wonderful.
yeah,
Well, you're going to show us some of your collections.
yes. Well, I'm a fiend for collections. I think, as you see, I collect teddy bears. They're not all out because I have put some things away, believe it or not.
We're going to stop
And-
and then we'll go to.
Oh, okay. Can we stop?
I'll put the light on with this.
And you see I have a collection of Santa Clauses, and this is just really about half of them. But I just decided, because I have to take everything down, and I have to put everything back after I get them down. So
This
I have
one?
it. Yes, that's my newest one. That's
Can I
from
sh-
Mexico. And and I love the guitar, and I just think he's really kind of special.
He's a wonderful Santa.
Yeah. Then I have the old St. Nicholas here. I think he's nice too. He's has a Dutch shoe and holes. I've enjoyed my collections, and although my children will tell you I go a little overboard, I guess. But that's just the way I am.
We're going to head in and see the room of
All right.
collections now, I think. Is there talking?
Hmm?
Is there talking bothering me?
Yeah.
Well, Valerie's been working in here, yes, and just,
Here, let me take that out here.
all right. This was full of dolls at one time. I had over 700, but I have been selling a lot of the dolls.
Oh my heavens, look at
Is there-
that.
My goodness.
Now, there is a light there. Do you want me to turn that on?
No, this is fine.
You sure?
Yeah.
Mm. And,
Does that help? Is that
or
bad?
is it worse? Huh?
Any good
These are
stories
mostly-
about those?
Well, all of these these are what we call souvenir dolls, and they're from all over the world. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to do the traveling, but my sister and brother-in-law and friends and cousin and his wife have traveled quite a bit, and they would all bring me back dolls from there. And I used those in teaching quite a bit, when not all of those, but some that had the ethnic dress when we were talking about different countries, and the children enjoyed that. And then I had a lot of dolls that went with stories, like Alice in Wonderland, and I had a Pippi Longstocking, which the children always loved that story, and I gave that to my son after I retired, and so it just
Your son's a
just,
teacher.
yes, he was a teacher at second grade teacher, actually. And then these dolls, this was my mother's china cabinet, and those dolls will all go to Erin. And those are just, they're Madame Alexander's, and they're not, some of them are older than others, but none of them go back much before the 50s, I don't think. They're not real old, but they're collectible, and I've enjoyed those. But my better dolls really are pretty much gone now.
What have you liked about collecting?
Well, I think part of it is the doll club itself. I've met some lovely women through that, and I've learned about doll collecting. How people do it. Some people have nothing but very expensive porcelain dolls, and I've never particularly cared for porcelain. I like the composition, and I think part of that is because that's what I grew up with as a child. So it meant more to me, and because I can remember having one porcelain head doll, and it broke right away. I dropped it, and it broken. That was so disappointing to me. And of course the composition don't break that easily. But I have a lot of vinyls now too that are not particularly collectible even, but they were just some that I liked for one reason or another. And they say if you collect, you should just get what you like and not worry about, I didn't get it with the idea of making a lot of money or
Right.
anything. And just,
Now, when did you start
Oh.
collecting dolls? What age?
well, actually, I always loved dolls even as a child, but I think my real collection probably didn't start until the early 60s. And I started teaching. See, I went back to college as an older woman, and I had been married in my junior year of college at Washington State, and it didn't dawn on me to go back to school at that time. Nobody but nerds went back to school after they were married. So I waited until I was, I went to UPS. I had to go 2 years and 2 summers, and graduated in 1965 and started to teach. But we thought that was a good insurance policy for me when Phil was so ill, and it really turned out to be a wonderful thing, because when I was first in college, I thought I'd want to do anything but teach, and then I changed my mind over the years, and I was working so much in PTA and thought, I could be paid for some of this.
Mhm.
But it wasn't just that, but I really loved working with the children, and I loved teaching. So I only taught for 17 years because Phil had been retired 6 years when I retired, and I felt I needed to be home. And,
Mhm.
oh,
Mhm.
but there's some funny little, this, I was telling you about the little girls that came the other day, and this doll was made by my little 9-year-old friend, for me, especially for me. And I thought but that's so precious, and that's really the beginning of folk art, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just somebody starts that way, and she did it all without anybody knowing what she was doing or anything, and brought that
Now,
up.
tell people about what this is.
Well, this is a lifeline, and I normally wear this around my neck, and if I should fall or need attention for any reason, I just push this button, and it speaks to me from Moore Hospital through here. And if I go away, I lift this up, and it says away, and they know that I'm going to be gone for a while. And when I come back, I push that down so that they know. So I'm really protected at any time, because I have taken one rather serious fall before I was in hospice, and my balance is a little off now, and so my children felt better about my having this, and it's just been wonderful. And they're so careful about, as I say, they called me twice yesterday to be sure I was all right, because something apparently had malfunctioned, I think. So that's it, and that's been a help to my children, I think, to know that if they're not here or nobody's around, that there's something that's kind of watching over me besides God.
Yeah.
No, God's helping. I
That's
guess.
right. God's helpers.
Yeah.
Lifeline.
Yeah. And,
Well, thank you for
Wonderful.
showing us your collection.
and I really have more bears, I think, now, but I put a lot of them away for Christmas because I thought it was just a little much.
Too much.
Yeah.
And you'll
Yeah.
get them out after Christmas.
Mhm.
Did you
Yeah.
get into Beanie Babies yet?
No, I have two that were given me. This is a beanie dachshund, because we had a little dachshund, and then I have a beanie bear somewhere. Oh, I guess he's put away, huh? That someone gave me last Christmas, but I didn't let myself get into that.
Boy. Many people are.
Yeah. Yes, I know the girl that cut Valerie's hair, I think, has 98 or something, And, but it's fine, but I don't think they're ever going to be worth much either. This is a little Patsy. This is a wee Patsy, and I played with these dolls when I was little, only they were bigger than this. So I have that just because I've sold all my Patsies, and I keep that just to remind me that that's my childhood. And, they were very popular in the 30s. And these dolls are from Hawaii. I've enjoyed those because we got a new doll every time we were over there. The first dolls that I got was this little guy. A friend of mine went to Hawaii, And he knew that I was going to do a unit on our two new states, Alaska and Hawaii, and so he brought me this. And then every time we were over in Hawaii about 3 times, I think, and we'd buy them. And these dolls show, and each island has their own style of dress. And of course, this is the missionary type. And she's from, can't remember all these now. But anyway, but she's very typical of the old mission style dress. And then this is one with her costume. But I think they're kind of fun, just to, and they do, you know, remind you of trips and places you've been. So, and let me see, my son brought me one. Oh, he brought this one for me.
The bear surfing.
Yeah.
I like that. It's cute.
Mhm.
Very cute.
Yeah, so.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to show us?
Well, I don't think so. I think this is about it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but it's been very much fun for me, and I share. You know, I've given talks on dolls to DAR. Gave it to one talk, and I have spoken to garden clubs on dolls, which is kind of odd, but and I enjoy doing that. You know, when I was younger, and doing it. So it's been fun.